Dear students, so welcome back to Industrial Property HOE 6065. And well, we started with patent law last time and spoke a bit about patents. Nothing much, just an introductory aspect. So we'll continue with that today and try to look at what sort of things are included in patent law and what are the various requirements. So I'll give you some examples today, and then later we'll go over the European Patent Convention and the specific articles in it, which deal with what's the operational part of the patent system. So when we look at patents, I tried to explain some things last time, and well, we looked at different issues that can arise when we are considering what is patentable. And of course, well, there are also inventions and the whole idea about understanding what an invention is and what are the various elements that we can draw inspiration from. Now, in this particular lecture series, I'll be talking about not just the European Patent Convention, but also the United States patent law, for example, with some case studies because they are very relevant and they sort of help us to draw a good understanding of the various aspects and elements of patent law systems. So even though you may feel that there's a bit of a mismatch here because there's a European Patent Convention and the U.S. patent laws and things like that, but thanks to TRIPS, the trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, most of these issues have been taken care of, and there's a lot of synchronization, a high degree of interoperability of the patent laws of different countries. So you don't have to worry much about that. Now, I gave some examples last time about what are the various issues that can arise with regard to patenting. And well, we looked at some graphs and some examples of the cycle for instance. But I must stress upon the fact that patent doesn't need to be really super expensive. The patentable invention doesn't need to be like cutting edge, high tech, super expensive stuff. It can be quite straightforward and simple things as well. And well, one example that I often talk about is regarding the simplicity of a patent, or rather a patentable invention, is this. All right. So now, well, this is a drawing I made some time ago. So this is the human being. Yeah, it's the face. This is the eye, the eyeball, and the cross section of the eye. And basically, what we have here is how do you perceive or visualize a distant object, like for example a candle. So the candle is here, and basically what happens is the light rays go into your eyeball, yeah, the pupil over here, and then because of the curvature of the pupil, they sort of go through, then they are inverted, and the candle image in an inverted form is sort of imprinted at the back over here, where the cells pick it up, and these optic cells and the optic nerve then transport this image to the tiny little brain, and there this upside down candle becomes normal again. And so that's the normal way of how vision is perceived. Now, what happens with people who have myopia or any of these other issues? Basically, the curvature of the lens changes, and because of this, now when you try to look at a distant object or a nearby object, the image that is cast on your optic cells is a bit blurred because of the fact that the curvature of the lens or the of the pupil distorts the rays of light, which is why we now need, in this case, specs, yeah, spectacles. So these are prescribed spectacles, and so basically what we have here is the curvature of the lens, so it's glass or plastic or whatever, and now based on that it sort of makes adequate corrections so that your pupil, which has your the lens on your eye which has lost its particular shape, well, that's okay, because these lens over here sort of correct that that image that is cast on the back of your eyeball. Now, well, those of you who have specs or know people with specs, first of all, these things can be quite expensive. They're not very cheap, so that's an issue. And also, you need to have access to a good doctor or an optometrist or an optician, and very often that may not be the case in some of the poorer countries or in rural areas. So you have people in different parts of the world who don't have access straight away to all of these facilities. Secondly, the lens could be like 40 euros, the frame could be 100 euros. So we're looking at 150, 190, 200 euros to get a replacement frame and things. So this was often a problem and a leading cause of not blindness, but short-sightedness or myopia or whatever, and which could not be resolved because of financial constraints. And so somebody came up with the idea that, well, you see, if these are the lens, why should they be made of glass? Why not make it of a see-through material, some sort of plastic or something which is transparent, which can be pumped with a liquid. You see that? And now when you pump in the liquid, the angle of the curvature changes, becomes more or less, yeah. And so now this is on the frame, and you have this little pump here on the side. Now what happens with this sort of a specs is it's very cheap, of course. These just cost like maybe 5 euros or even less, made of plastic, cheap stuff. Now you can give this to a person in a rural area in Asia, Africa, South America, wherever. All right. And now this person, first of all, doesn't need to go to an optometrist. He or she can just simply adjust it, and based on the pumping, of the fluid that goes into this plastic sack, the angle changes. And so, first of all, this person can determine, what is the correct curvature by herself. And number two, if the number of the eye goes up, rarely comes down, then she or he can adjust and accordingly have a better life. So this is an example of an invention. Yeah, say, can't go wrong with an invention. So this is something that can really be helpful. And another example would be, now let's say, a toilet seat. All right. And in another particular course, I was teaching this in property law. So I have a lot of these things here. So, well, what do we have here? This is, let's say, a toilet seat. Okay. And so you sit on the toilet seat and you watch your mobile phone or whatever. Yeah. And do other stuff. And this is, of course, a septic tank. This is something that I use in my property law notes. But let's just look at this. It's a WC, it's a toilet seat. What more can you do with this? Nothing much, right? So how could you, for example, try to make this better? Now, well, there are different aspects to it. Number one is, if you all know, there are possibilities for improvements over here. So it's already an invention, and as I explained, you can have incremental improvements. So one improvement could be, well, when you go to the toilet, if it's a small flush or the big flushing option, and yeah, so if it's a small flushing thing, it's still like almost 2 liters or 3 liters of water, and if it's the big flushing option, that's almost 10-15 liters of water. All right. So now, since most of us are at home, hopefully, and working from home or studying at home or whatever, so what are we looking at? We're looking at least 6-7 trips to the toilet in a day. That's minimum. So that's almost already 60, 70, 80 liters of water, and that's quite an issue. So one aspect could be, maybe you could have a toilet that is made of a Teflon coating in the inside. All right. Now, why would the Teflon coating help? Well, you see, it makes it less sticky. So, if there is less stuff sticking inside, then you need less water to, flush it down. Yeah, that's an option. Or you could have toilets which are like in aeroplanes. Yeah, remember when we used to fly? Yeah. So it's a flush toilet, but it works on a vacuum. So you have minimal usage of water, and it's more of the vacuum sucks in, whatever. So again, what's the purpose here? You're making the invention better. You're improving it. So again, would that be patentable? Well, we'll look at some of these issues. And then this is in the same light like the last time when I was talking about the cycle. Yeah, same similar options. And then what else could you do to make a toilet seat better? Well, here's one option. All right, and then we are seeing this a lot nowadays. You can't really go to a doctor very often, and let's say you're old, you're 85, and you have to have certain checkups done. And what if you were to have a toilet seat? Yeah, a toilet Western commode, and the usual one, but of course it's got little mini sensors here. And now when the old person or whoever goes in the morning, poops, peeps, whatever, the sensors do the reading, and now from there it goes to this particular device which transmits the signal through the Wi-Fi, and now this goes to your health service provider, a doctor or a nurse, and she or he gets in real time a daily set of readings which indicate what was the composition of the urine sample or the stool sample, or what did you eat, and what are the various components of whatever you flush down here. So you see, again, this is a situation where you take a usual WC and then you turn it into something better. So these are all the sort of things that usually work out with inventions. Of course, there can be sometimes some problems over here. Now let's look at an example of a problem here. So this is something else that I had drawn. All right, now this is this is a average human being, and this is a description of his lungs. All right, so you see the windpipe goes from here. You have two pipes. There's a food pipe and a windpipe. So the windpipe goes from here and it goes into the lungs. And over here is the diaphragm, and the diaphragm, of course, is this muscle which creates the suction effect, and so that's how you breathe. So you breathe in either through your nose, yeah, or your mouth, and it all sort of joins up together, and you breathe in, you breathe out, inhale, exhale. And that's how things are. But now let's say somebody has asthma, and asthma, if you know, is this immune system response. It can be triggered by all sorts of things. Maybe hay fever, maybe you ate something, maybe you smelled something. And what happens in this situation is that this pipe over here, yeah, the trachea, the windpipe, sort of it's like this, and it constricts and becomes smaller. Now you have a problem here. In this situation, how do you inhale or exhale when there's just this one pipe that goes to your lungs? Goes in, comes out, so it's all through this one pipe. And if the diameter changes from this into something smaller, then of course you have a serious problem here. And that's because your immune system is triggering off some weird signals and causing this this situation to arise. Now, of course, how can you deal with this problem? Well, there are drugs for that. So the drugs are not an issue. Now, of course, the only thing here is you could take the solid form of the capsule, 500 milligrams, and so you swallow it. Now, of course, this is the invention, the drug. The problem with this method of delivery is it goes first from your mouth to your stomach. Remember, you're swallowing this medicine, this pill, and because your stomach is acidic, then half of the thing gets ruined, unless you have a very strong outer layer to cover the the ingredients of the capsule or the drug. So that's one. Then from the stomach it goes to the intestine, which is basic. So again, a lot of the material gets degraded, the pharmaceutical product. And then finally from there it gets picked up by different vessels in the intestinal lining, and then it gets circulated through. So now it will have to go to the kidneys to get filtered. It will then also have to go through this liver aspect, to sort of get more digestion possibilities. And at every stage, what I'm trying to say here is that this 500 milligram thing gets reduced and gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then finally, maybe after 15 minutes, half an hour or something, there's enough in the blood vessels to then go to the heart and then get pumped all over. And then maybe a bit of it may finally reach this part, maybe 2 hours after you have taken the medicine. So that's not a very effective way of dealing with things. But what if you had a liquid form of the same chemical compound? Now you could just inject the liquid form into your blood vessel, and then it goes straight to your heart, and then from your heart it gets spread out and goes to this affected part over here. And of course, this would take maybe 15 minutes. So that's still a big difference. And of course, it doesn't go through the stomach and intestine, and it doesn't get degraded or reduced in value. So of course, you don't need 500 ml. Maybe you just need 50 milliliters. And so that's quite a good saving. Remember, all of these drugs can also have an impact on your liver and kidneys and stuff. So of course, the less you have exposure to this, the better it is. But what if you could have the same drug in the gas form? Remember, you have solids, liquids, and gases. So now if it's in a gas form, it's like an inhaler. You just take the inhaler, you do hoof and inhale, and of course this puff goes straight from here, straight here, 5 seconds, and the effect starts already. And for this now you just need maybe 5 micrograms or something, and so you can already see 500 milligrams, 50 milliliters, and 5 micrograms. Now of course this is not straightforward and simple, because what sort of compound exists as a solid, as a liquid, and as a gas in room temperature? So of course you have different compounds with some additions or some different substances added to them. So this chemical formulae is not going to be the same. So you see what I'm talking about over here is each one of these would be a different invention by itself, because you can have a drug in a solid form, a drug in a liquid form, a drug in a gas form, in room temperature, or under special circumstances. And so again, these are all interesting aspects of novelty, and we'll talk about this in more detail, of course, when we look at the European Patent Convention and the various aspects to it. But I hope these examples sort of already give you an idea about the different issues that can arise over here. You may think they're all the same, but of course, they're not all the same. Each of these is different, and the legal test is what we'll be performing to see whether they comply with Article 52, 53, all of these things. So, these are some of the aspects that are interesting. Another issue now with patents is, why do we have the patent system? So of course it provides incentives and it encourages innovation, and it promotes competition and investment. You have a patent, you can go to a bank, get a loan, things like that. So I remember once I dealt with a lot of patent stuff during my time in the law firm, and it was almost for 9 years, and you get to meet a lot of interesting people, and then of course a lot of interesting insights. So we met this one guy from New Zealand, and he was a scientist, and basically this was quite a long time ago, and he said that he had invented the cure for HIV. That time, those were innocent times. We had like simpler problems, not like a pandemic or something. So HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, and it causes, it doesn't kill the person, it reduces your immune system, and then you get AIDS. So that's this AIDS is this problem area now. So basically your body reaches a situation where the immune system is completely degraded. And because of that, a simple cough becomes pneumonia. A simple infection leads to all sorts of things. So okay. So we are like, wow, all right. So you have a cure for HIV or AIDS. Oh, that's very interesting. And what is it? So he said, well, basically, his research had shown that when a woman gives birth to a child, yeah, so for the first 1 or 2 or 3 days, the breast milk is yellow in color. It's called colostrum, and contains a lot of proteins and special antibiotic stuff and everything. Unfortunately, I don't know, it's like very often the first day or so, the milk, people sort of tend to dispose it off. They think it's a bit weird yellow colored milk, but actually it's very helpful for the newborn infant. So his research showed that if you can collect a lot of this colostrum, yeah, and then refine it, and then all sorts of filtration processes and everything, then you get this particular uh, compound in the end, and this can sort of reduce the viral load in the case of HIV. So we were all looking at him like, oh, okay, um, that's innovative. So we asked him, well, all right, have you got a patent for this? Because if you have applied for a patent, everybody can apply. If you get a patent from the US or something, then that's really wow, right? Because that means the US patent office has said, okay, very good, your invention is patentable. And in that case, then you can go wherever. I mean, Bill Gates will give you money, the bank will give you money, governments will give you money, because you have an invention, you have a monopoly. So this sort of encourages technological innovation, promotes competition and investment. Of course, you will enter into license agreements with companies in different countries, and you don't have to manufacture everything yourself. Just like the vaccines for coronavirus, AstraZeneca makes some in the UK, some in Netherlands, then some in India. Johnson and Johnson, accordingly, the Russians have Sputnik. So they sort of outsource production, and then you can do all sorts of these things, and so there's technology transfer happening. So AstraZeneca gave the whole formula and how to make it to the Indian company, and so the Indian company is now carrying out licensed production, and for every vial they sell in the market or whatever, they give a certain percentage to AstraZeneca and to Oxford University. Or they're saying that they don't even want to claim profits on this. So again, interesting issues that arise over here. So coming back to our scientist friend from New Zealand, well, he said no, he has not got a patent yet. So then we are like, well, then this discussion is stupid, right? Because if you don't have a patent, then nobody's going to pay you to get the rights for your invention. I mean, it sounds stupid, but maybe sometimes people try to be the early bird that gets the worm, and so they try to get into negotiations. But in this case, we said, there's nobody going to give you €1 million upfront, because you don't have a patent certificate. So that's of course this aspect. Now, well, one of the important elements of the patent system is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So basically, you make the wheel and you get a patent for it, figuratively speaking, for this invention of the wheel. And now you have to reveal all the background, all the technical know-how, everything, and it comes on the patent register. And based on that, of course, you get a patent, and it's for 20 years from the date of application. And once this 20-year period is over, then of course somebody can now use this invention that you have described to sort of make a spin-off, or continue making the same product. And you see that a lot with a lot of pharmaceutical products, for example. So you have a patent for Viagra, and Pfizer has, and so they can sell it. They have a monopoly, and at the end of the 20-year period, then this monopoly ends, and now somebody else in some other country can get the information and make the same chemical product, compound, whatever. And although Pfizer may have charged €100 for that product, once it is off patent, then the same product doesn't cost so much anymore. All right, it's like your phones, right? And the phone is just just plastic and metal or whatever. That's hardly anything. What's the relevant thing is the software that's inside, and it's the same way with the patent also. So a lot of these drugs, they don't really cost so much. Now the Pfizer vaccine for coronavirus, I think they sell it for 25 euros or 20 euros. Well, of course, it doesn't cost so much, right? I mean, if you're making a million of them, a billion of them, it's easy money in a way. The cost is initially just for the research and development and innovation parts. But once that is done, then you'll realize that this same product can be mass manufactured for just 2 euros. So the remaining 18 euros is pure profit. Of course, it's not so simple. You have this 20-year period and the license, as per the terms of the license, as per the terms of the patent. And based on this 20-year period, you can adequately try to make your money. Doesn't always work, but there is a possibility. But after that, a lot of these things don't cost so much. So the first person who made the pen, well, it probably had a substantial amount of costs. But after that, this is just something that costs a couple of cents to make, mass produce. So the trick over here often is you need to reveal, yes, as per the law, but maybe you should not reveal everything. Yeah, maybe you reveal 99% and keep that 1% a little off the record. So you are doing what I always talk about. Yeah, you are bending the law without breaking the law, and of course you shouldn't get caught. And then thirdly, of course, if somebody has to go to prison, make sure it's your client and not you. But this is an idea now. The idea here is that you have to reveal to get a patent, but you don't have to reveal 100%. Yeah, if you can reveal 99% and keep that little 1% safely locked up, then that's your trade secret, and that could be the way to make a lot of money. So even after a 20-year period, the information is there, but it's incomplete because the crucial element is missing. So an example of that would be alcohol. All right, alcohol is how alcohol is made. It's grapes or whatever product you take, and you boil it. And of course, this is a simplistic example of a distillation process. And you boil it, and so the vapors go up, and then you have a cooling system over here, and finally you get drops over here, and this is supposed to be pure alcohol. Yeah, no, that sort of makes sense. So you get this this biological product, and you turn it into alcohol. So whatever gets left behind is the waste product, and whatever is here is the pure product. Now, this is just an example, all right? It's just an analogy. It's not something that's really true in the real life, but it's an example. So what could be the issue here? Well, alcohol basically is something with a chemical formula of OH, yeah, and so that's an oxygen and a hydrogen bound together to form a compound OH, and that's alcohol group. Now, alcohol groups can be of different types. There can be methyl alcohol. These are the two main ones. Methyl alcohol is CH3OH. All right, now this is chemistry class. All right, and then there is ethyl alcohol, 2 carbon, so C2H5OH, 2 carbons, 5 hydrogens, and 1 alcohol group. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, this raw material contains alcohol, and when you do this distillation process, very often you maybe read about this, that somebody makes booze at home, and people have a party, and then half the people go blind, and then 10 people die, and it's a big problem and stuff. Why do people make alcohol at home? I don't know. Okay, but that's how this process can sometimes cause a problem. So why is this an issue? Well, you see, when you do this process, it contains all sorts of elements, including both types of alcohol, methyl and ethyl. Methyl is super dangerous. You drink that, it'll be off alcohol for the rest of your life. But ethyl alcohol is what you want. That's what becomes your vodka or whiskey or rum or gin or whatever. And so methyl alcohol has a boiling point of 64.7 degrees. So when you're doing this, yeah, as soon as the temperature reaches 64.7, the first vapors that start coming out condense and you get these drops over here, and that's your methyl alcohol. So what you do is you collect it and then you throw it out or do whatever, don't drink it. And then you wait for the boiling temperature to go to 78.37 degrees. And when that happens, the next batch of the drops will be ethyl alcohol. That's what you need. All right. So now maybe your invention is how to distill alcohol. That's your invention. So you have the raw material, you have the process, you have the setup, and you do all of that, and the moistures come up, and you say you collect them, and hey presto, you get alcohol. You just forget to mention, that the first 10 drops are methyl, and they are not what you should be having, but rather it's the second batch that is ethyl that you should be focusing on. All right, you see that? Now that's how you do things. This is again a very simplistic example. This is not even realistic in that sense, but this is what explains how this process works with law and patent attorneys. You reveal 99% of everything. You just leave out that 1% part about the temperature difference. And if you do it smartly enough, and if you are clever enough, what you end up with is a situation wherein, wow, you end up with a monopoly. Of course, there are other ways to deal with this monopoly also. We will talk about these in future lectures as well. But I hope you understand how this works. Yeah. So why do we need patents? Well, it enables investments and higher returns. So that's very important, because if there is no incentive to do research, then why would anybody do research? An example of this is, a couple of years ago, there was Ebola. Remember Ebola? Everybody was like, wow, Ebola. Yeah, but who cares? Who got Ebola? Maybe somebody in Congo, somebody in Sierra Leone, or somebody somewhere, all right? Zambia, Zaire. That's it. Who cares? Nobody cares. Because the people who got it, they died. Well, they were poor anyways, and so nobody's really interested in a drug that has no financial economic viability. On the other hand, you have Viagra. Like, what the hell? What is Viagra for? It sort of deals with impotency issues in older people. And well, this is not such a lost cause, right? You have a lot of retired pensioners, at least before the coronavirus pandemic, and they get a pension. So they are 65 years old, and they're bored, sitting at home, nothing to do. And well, you can give them a drug that cures impotency issues. Yeah. And then again, is this a lifestyle drug? Well, not really, but you see, there's a market for this product, and because there's a market, then always people want to sell stuff. And then of course, what would this sort of comprise of? Well, if you were to look at it in a very, very simplistic sense, now when we are looking at what does Viagra do? So well, you have the male sexual organ, and then of course so let's say this would be it. Yeah. And so this is, for example, the male penis, and of course it has a few things going on here. There would be a tube which is for the urine, connected to the urethra and the urinary bladder, and then there is also another tube connected to the testicles, from which the sperm production is done. Now, because of the certain aspects of this anatomy, what you have here is a situation where to acquire erection, there are a lot of different sacs over here. Yeah. And when you have arousal, basically it's sort of an excitement which leads to blood coming into this part of the body and getting retained. And because of this hydraulic pressure that is created, you have what you could call an erection. All right, so that would be over here. So it's all hydraulics. Now, why would this not work? Well, there are two reasons for this. One could be psychological, and the second is physiological. All right, this is a very simplistic way of looking at things. What is psychological? You have too much stress, you have too much strain, you have too many things in your mind, and so you're not able to focus on this, and the excitement is not enough to trigger blood flow and things. And so for that, you need to put on some soft romantic music, turn on, have some alcohol, get into the mood, watching Netflix and chill, and that could maybe help. But if it is physical, psychological and physiological. So if it's physiological, basically what you are having over here is an issue with the blood supply. Yeah. So basically there's not enough blood coming in for whatever reason. Maybe your arteries have hardened, maybe there is something that's not letting the blood come in, or it's not letting the blood stay in long enough to enable an erection. And so Pfizer's Viagra deals with that part. And so basically there's a whole science to it, of course, and I teach more about that in another course which is on biotechnology. But this is basically what I'm trying to say here is that Viagra and the compounds that are there, they sort of have an impact on the receptor cells, and what they allow is for the blood to flow in and to get trapped easily into these sacs to enable an erection. And of course the side effect of this could be the erection could last for quite a long time, because this is not based on a stimulus anymore, but it's a chemical reaction induced by the compound, the drug, the pharmaceutical product. But the point here is that there is a market for this sort of stuff. There's no market for Ebola, but rather there's a market for Viagra. And so a lot of the inventors and pharmaceutical companies would like to focus on these sort of issues. So that's of course one of the disadvantages, because inventions are based on RDI, research, development and innovation. They can be expensive, you have to reveal all your secrets, and of course enforcement is not straightforward. It can take still a bit of time after the grant of the patent. So there are pros and cons to the patenting system, and I'm not saying that the patent system is perfect, but what I'm saying is you can do certain things with it if it works all right. And if you're successful, then there are strategies which can be used. But of course it's a big boys game, it's expensive, and it's not for everybody. It's not everybody's cup of tea. So let's stop here for today. Next time we look at articles 52 to 57, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56 and 57 of the European Patent Convention, and try to understand the legal aspects of each and every issue that goes with what is a patentable invention. And there are a lot of rules in this regard which we need to follow. And again, we'll talk also about different case studies and examples to understand how the variations work. All right, so until then, have a nice time and see you next week. Goodbye.